What's going on YouTube? Modeling that back at you. Wanted to take and do a little tutorial video. Posted a thing on Facebook about making brake screen vents, and so wanted to go through just kind of that process of how it works, how it's all set up, and what glues I use, the process I use for it, and everything like that. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so we'll go through the tools that we'll need to complete this. First off is a sharp X-Acto blade or X-Acto knife. Um, need some Evergreen strip styrene. For this I am using .010 by .030 strips. Got a little piece here. You'll then need the actual mesh material. Now I purchased this off of our good old friend Amazon. And there are different sizes of this that can be purchased. I went ahead and took a Sharpie and just marked on it so I knew which was which for myself. This is 120 mesh 304 stainless steel. So nice thing is, won't rust, won't corrode. But for the brakes, you can also get 60, which as you can see looking through, a little bit more of a larger gap. Those I will most likely be utilizing for, I'll most likely be using the 60 for some other builds, and then the one that I'll actually use for the brake ducts is number 80, so 80 mesh. This is just a little sample. Get that to lock in here for you. So as you can see, a little bit wider opening than this here. Again, using the two side by side as a comparison. It'll just kind of give that little bit of an extra dimension. Actually, looking at this, I may inevitably go with the 60. The 80 is just not that big of a contrast. And the 60, when I had it in as a test earlier for how I was going to do this, just looked a little bit cleaner here in the front. So outside of that, for the glue side of things, I use the Plastruct bonding. Again, this is the white label stuff. I've got the yellow label, or I'm sorry, the orange label. Doesn't seem to work as well. The one thing you'll note though is I've removed the built-in brush. That just would supply way too much glue for our needs. So for that, I am using the micro brush fine. Picked this up in a good old estate sale, so you can see a little bit older. They have gone up in price, but these I have found work great. This one I have been, let me find my little locator here off my desk. This one I have actually been using for my current build, which is an F14 Tomcat, and plus I was using it for this test. That way, again, just gives you an idea. So we'll go through and get started the next process here of getting this marked. I'll go ahead and actually use this number 80, just kind of see how it looks in place, and then decide if for the final if I want to use that or not. Again, a couple bits of information at least that I've been able to glean from watching the old races, seeing some of the pictures of the old trucks. The grills up here, they would have been basically mounted from the backside. There was actually a run-in or a lead-in to them, so I'm going to go ahead and replicate that on this, where all of the lower grills here in the front were, I guess you could call it flush mounted, where they were mounted on the outside. I do need to open these up just a little bit more. Again, looking at the reference photos for the truck that I'm building, or will be building soon, the openings need to be a bit larger. So again, this is just a test and an ability for me to show you guys how to do this. So we'll start on that here in just a moment. Alright, so the first step of this process is we're going to need to find out exactly how big of an opening that we need, and that way we can cut it out. As you can see, this piece of scrap does have a couple of seams running through it that I don't want to be in place, but I might actually be able to just get this here on the top. So what I'll do is I will take a marker. This is just a simple permanent marker, but with a fine tip. Let me lock this in so that the autofocus isn't going completely crazy the whole time. And what we'll do is we'll come in and just mark a little bit wider than what we'll inevitably need And actually, I don't like where that lined up, so try to keep the grain about as squared as possible. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just using this as a light shadow for us to grab and get this. Also, the nice thing is this is an alcohol-based ink, so rubbing alcohol should be able to get this off in a minute. I do have a pair of scissors my dad had from working at a factory where he was dealing with a lot of rubber parts, and they had metal pieces in between them. So these things are designed to cut through metal, so they cut really, really easy and really nicely. So again, just the rough cut. The one other thing I do want to note, just from a health and safety aspect, this does, the edges of these are extremely sharp. Again, these are basically just wire mesh screens. So the edges are very sharp, and I have had little fibers get stuck in me a few times. So before we go too much farther, we'll go ahead and take this. Again, hold it up, make sure we're about where we need to be. And what you want is just a little bit, not much, but just a tiny bit of overlap to the sides. Let me get this to lock in. As you can see, there's just a little bit of overlap on this side and just a tiny little bit on that side. Again, edges don't have to be perfect or anything like that. We will be cleaning those up and framing them with the styrene sheets. So here's our screen. Like I said, may not look the best at the moment, but that is perfectly fine. So next step, we'll go ahead and get this thing framed. So we'll set our body off to the side, and I will pull you guys in a little closer. That way you guys can get a better look at what I'm doing here. Alright, so this is actually going to be take 2 for me. Wasn't going to mention that, but then I got to thinking about it, and this actually is kind of a good thing to mention. The nice thing is about using this method is if something goes awry like this, basically all that I lost in my original piece, which I have right over here, is about, I'd say a few half a penny's worth of material that I lost in this. So yes, there is some time loss, but at the same time, like material wise in this hobby with kits the price that they are and stuff like that, don't feel like you have to do it quick, first off, and secondly, know that if there is a mistake or if something does go sideways, the cost to basically start over is not a lot. Even the strip styrene, I believe it's like maybe $4 for about, I think it's 10 strips, which is a foot each. So, we're talking about very little in the way of resource loss by that. And again, you can go really, really scientific with it, getting out calipers and everything like that. But to start off with here, first thing we need to do is just cut our top piece, which we'll do here. And then we will get this lined up on here. Actually, an easier way that I found in my last process that failed was if I line it up on the back side, I can skip a step. Which, who does not like being able to skip a step? So the big thing that you need to do with working with this is making sure that we get these lined up. And again, I can't get my head around and looking in the exact spot that I'd want to because I'm doing the video, so it might take me a few extra attempts to get there on this go around, but as you can see, it's a little prickly, stuck there on that. So let's lay that down, get this around, lay down. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. Now I'll go ahead and grab my little micro brush here, And then I'm going to run just a little bit right here on the backside. What you want it to do is bleed through enough to where when you push down carefully with your little tweezers here, we have a little bit of soft plastic. We're basically going to be pushing this metal grate into that plastic. This stuff really softens up the plastic well. And you can use other things like Tamiya Extra Thin. The reason I love this plastic bonding is it basically just glues and dries and rehardens the plastic very, very quickly. So let's get that loose. Get this turned so I can see it a little better. There we go. That's about as good. And I'm okay with that little overlap. We'll actually use that to our advantage. I'm going to go to paste this onto the truck here in a moment. As you can see, just run that little bit of glue down. In fact, if you want, I found that you can use the back end of the applicator as well. If you don't have a pair of metal tweezers, you can use these. Basically just push down, not a heavy amount of pressure, just a little bit of pressure. Get that to unseal. And here would be the top part of our little brake duct here. Now, if it's perfectly straight, not that big of a deal at the moment. We will get to that in a second. Again, this is also just a little test piece. So I'm doing this for reals on my truck, or for my truck, I will be definitely taking a lot more time. All right. And cut. Alright, now this one I'm going to do a little bit different than I did the last one. I'll very carefully hold this. Just to show you a different technique, you can apply just a little bit of glue here to the back side. Again, it didn't seem like I applied much, but that is all that I needed for this. And come in. And if you can get it down quick enough, well, of course I didn't, but if you can get it down quick enough and in place, you can get it to stick. Again, would I suggest this method? No, personally, but if you find that you're able to work with it and get it down a lot quicker, then that works as well. Now, for these, I would say definitely start on the top side. And that way you can check your gap. So as you can see, pretty decent gap there, and you can use that as your mount point. I'll just apply a little bit, give it about 4 or 5 seconds. Just enough to grab and bond. Now flip it over carefully. Make sure I've got that lined up the way that I want it. And at the bottom, try to keep my finger out of the view for you. Run that right down through there. Again, you'll notice it changes to a darker shade of that metallic silvery gray. Actually, I'll go ahead and use the back of my applicator. Just seemed to work a little better. All right. Now, flip this over. As you can see, definitely looks pretty good. I'll get in the tweezers here. Up a little closer. I'll switch my hands around here so I can get the autofocus. There we go. So as you can see, looks pretty good. Not exactly a perfect corner, but we'll come back to that in just a moment. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to get the other two sides on, and I will meet you back as soon as that is done. Alright, now that we've got this all squared up, next thing we need to do is create our dividing line. So what I'm going to do up here, just out of the camera's view for a moment, almost out of the camera's view, is I'm just going to square off a piece of styrene, best of my abilities. Again, is it perfect? Nah. But this is, at the end of the day, only a test piece just to give you guys the concept of how to do it. So what I will do now, I'm going to grab my pen. Sorry for any of the shuddering with the other. Now I'm going to cut on the far side of the line because obviously we want to make sure we have a long enough piece. And the way we can also check that is we will lay that down right back here. Yep, if we cut just a little bit beyond that line, we'll be good. So again, I am rushing through this, so I'm not taking maybe as much care as I could. Okay, I've got that. Get that piece out of our way. And then I've not found a better way to do this yet. And I'm also doing this on camera, which makes it 3 times as difficult. So, try to do this in vision, but I need to see what I'm doing also. So sorry about that, guys. All that I'm doing is basically getting the blade lined up about as on center as I can. And just push through. There we go. Lost one, but that's fine. We got the other half here. So, got a little half piece here. That's where I know it's in best field of view for you guys. Grab our little tiny piece of strip styrene. It's just a tick long, so we'll just nip the littlest of bits off. Okay. Get this one laid across. Now, obviously these run straight down the middle, so you want to try to get them lined up in the center about as well as possible. At least for the one that I'm making, I should state. Some of the other trucks or brake ducts over the year, there's maybe a little different, but at least for the ones that I'm doing now. Get our Bonding glue. A little touch. Let it sit, and that's fine. It did move it. As long as we get the top locked in, then you can come in with the bottom. And light pressure as we slide down through here. We'll just lightly melt. Stretch that out. Okay, so we've got this part. Go ahead, flip her over very carefully. And we will embed the centers on her. Right on in, just right like that. Again, quote Bob Ross, the faintest of brushes touching. Okay, that's enough. That piece, and there we go. Again, as I'm doing this in the course of about 5 minutes, looking around, over, under, and everything else with the camera. Is it perfect? No. I'm just going to use a sanding stick here. Let me sand that top down. As you can see, there's just a little bit of wiggle still that's left in here. But there we go. There is our brake duct. Now, let me go ahead and reset, and we'll then get this attached onto the truck, because that is kind of a cool process in and of itself. Alright, so now that we've got our body back here, let's go ahead and lock that into place. Actually, let me adjust the focus one more time. So, got our grill here. All that we need to do to put this on is, again, line this up exactly where we want it. I'm going to hold it up to where I can see through. You want to usually hold it up to a light, that way you can square it up with the opening. That way you know that that's lined up. Again, line it up the best you can, top and bottom. Make sure that it's as square as possible. We get a little bit of our glue. Run right up the side. Across the top. Get rid of that little fluff there. Get a little bit on the bottom. Again, we gotta be careful, make sure we don't get our fingerprints in this. Now that's held. We'll go ahead and finish squaring this up. And right here on top. On the side. On the bottom. And then very gently, we'll use the back of our thing just to lightly push in. Again, all we're doing is allowing the glue to soften that plastic enough to just lightly attach the metal. There we go, and that's it. You now have one brake duct in and ready to go. And as you can see, looks pretty good. I mean, pretty convincing. Again, give you an idea of the different sizes. Nope, that's also 80. Let me find, here we go. Here's the piece of 120. So this would be for the top section up here. Run through, what I'll probably do for these is I'm going to run a strip of this across the back, right in that center to hold it in place. But there you go, you get a good look at what it would look like. And again, you got the different size of openings for the brake ducts versus actual radiator, just as it would be on the prototype or the real truck. Now, I know what you're wondering. Okay, that maybe doesn't look that great in bare plastic. What would it look like in color? So, good old Posca pen. Use blue on this one again, just to make it pop against the back. And actually, I'm gonna have to use a different one because I have not started that one, and they take a moment to get started. So I know I've used green. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so again, Posca pen, one PC1 MRs. If you've never used these things are awesome. So yeah, guess it's gonna be a John Deere truck. Now again, I did nothing with filling of gaps, anything like that. So there is going to be a gap up here at the top. And I also got this all together while shooting a video within about 25 minutes. So if I was just doing this, watching a video on YouTube, favorite YouTube videos or something, probably could have been done even quicker. I'm just going to lightly touch in the paint. All the way around. Again, I'm going to do a test. I'll do it upright for you guys. So there you go. There is a brake duct opening in and colored. All in a time span of about 25-30 minutes. Again, while making a video. So, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little tutorial, and hopefully you guys can use this in your modeling. Definitely, I'm not going to take full credit for this. Lucas C. From Lucas C. Model Car Hobby Headquarters, he's the one that gave me the idea for the wire mesh. So I got to give credit where credit's due. He mentioned it. It took me a while to try to sort out exactly what type of mesh was needed. Again, they range in various sizes. From 60 is about the smallest, or I'm sorry, the smallest number I would go. They are in reverse order. So again, the smaller the number, the bigger the opening. So again, here would be a 60. That's about the smallest that I would go for a model car, especially in 1/24th, 1/25th scale. And I would even say that these could really only be used in the instance of like the screen behind a, apologize, we live right across the street from a fire station, so somebody's not having a good night. But I would use this behind like the front grille, between that and a radiator, or an air inlet on like a supercar or something like that. 80 to me is a good size for those brake ducts. Again, not as compact. You have 120 here, which is a good one for just standard radiator grill openings on stock cars. And I have seen it before. This color is a number 200. This is actually getting into the point of where it just feels like normal fabric, which is kind of crazy that it's metal. But this stuff, I think, is what I will use on some of my early 80s, mid 80s stock cars. I know technically it's probably a finer mesh than what it should be. It should probably be closer to the 120, but this color is just perfect. I love the color of this, the way that it shines and cleans the light. So yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed that. Again, this stuff, I'll be honest, has revolutionized my model building here over the last several months. I've been able to do pretty much a complete kit build in a month, from construction through to paint and everything like that, including some auto kits. And as you guys know, with clear coats and stuff like that, that usually takes about a week to do by themselves. I contributed 100% to me finding a way to utilize this product. Can't shout its praises enough. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and let's have a moment to dry. There is one last look at our new brake inlet. Gives it that good look. You can see through it just as you would, but you get it in the right light, and it just looks like a metal screen. Just as it should. So, catch you guys later.